All right. Okay, so it is working. Brilliant. Hello, Sharon. Hello, Carol. I don't think we'll have many on tonight because it's short note, well, relatively short notice. Probably just be two or three here. Um, I'm just, I was just having to test my microphone then. How are you two? You're unmuted now.
Go. I'm
Me?
good, thank you. Yeah, me too. Not too bad considering everything that's going on.
Not too, not too, not too. I mean, God, yeah. There's been some stuff going on, hasn't there?
Yeah, yeah,
Are
a
you
lot.
are you managing okay?
I am at the moment. Yeah, yeah. I've got an appointment next week, which will tell me one way or the other what's going on. And then maybe I panic. I don't know. So we'll see what happens.
That's tough. Whenever you get some, you know, bad news
Mm.
or just health stuff in general, it's always just fills me with anxiety. And I was
Yeah,
chatting to I was chatting to one of our ladies just a bit earlier, about half an hour ago, and saying that, she's got some health stuff that has come up and the anxiety, what if this, what if that, what if that,
yeah,
and just
yeah.
absolutely messes with your head.
It does. Yeah. And you start thinking every little sort of tweak and pain that you get, is this part of it? And
Yeah,
and you start to become a bit paranoid. So,
yeah, you do.
yeah.
What would your what would if somebody a friend let's say was in the same position, what would you be your advice to them?
To try not to worry and wait until you know exactly what's going on, and then we can deal with it. And that's what I'm trying to do. So, yeah, I think it's the waiting, the not knowing what's going on, that's the hardest. I think once I've got some concrete information, then I can deal with it and process it because then I can find out what the next steps and things are. But at the moment, you're just sort of hanging. So, yeah, that's the hard bit.
Yeah, I just said what I was saying to her was you've just got to, whatever you're feeling, they're your emotions. It's normal to experience anger, guilt, or whatever. But like thinking too far ahead just spirals that what if scenarios that increase anxiety. So focus on what you can control today
Mm,
and, you know, yeah, just prepare
yeah,
questions for, whatever scenario it is and make
yeah,
sure you've got a sort of some sort of a plan,
yeah,
self-care plan and stuff. It's just, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
the waiting, it's tough.
yeah.
Um, so okay, so I'm going to record this for people that aren't watching because there is. How do I record that? Oh, it is recording. Hey, I set it up properly this time. Um, right. So I wanted to talk specifically today on something that a bit of psychology of eating. We've got that series, but I wanted to talk about something I haven't talked about for a while, probably at least a year now. Um, because the psychology of eating is probably the biggest thing that a lot of you deal with, whether it's through the emotional eating aspect of it, whether it's through stress eating, whether it's through even in Viola's case, for example, really if she's happy, she'll emotionally eat. You know what I mean? It's like a celebration of those things. So I think ultimately food is meant to be enjoyed. It's an integral part of life. It is, it doesn't matter what your health goals are. You
Mm.
can relish, you can savor, you can anticipate food, you can look back on your meals, feel good about how enjoyable they were. And it's not easy to do. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to do. And it's important that we try and if we try and master this really deceptively simple relationship with food, it requires you to have an understanding of the food psychology behind it, and that's sort of where we're bloody good, because food gets complicated when we start to begin to project feelings, when we judgments, specific values onto it, because people often think, right, and you would have tell me if you've heard this before that they think about their relationship with food in terms of, I can't, I shouldn't, I mustn't, I won't, I should, I must, those types of
Mm.
um those types of thinking patterns. And they ask themselves things like, oh, why did I even eat that? Like, I didn't even want it. Like, why can't I eat what I intend to eat, whatever's on the food plan or something that. And all of this shoulding and sort of second guessing yourself and, and labeling sometimes, leads to that sort of fear, guilt, regret, I suppose a sense of lack of control around food as well, because there's a lot of diet cult in the industry, in this dieting culture, dieting world, whatever you want to call it. It promotes a lot of these attitudes. It makes people feel dependent on specific diets. Um, so they keep going back and either people are constantly deprived and they'll say, oh, I've got great willpower, or they feel guilty for eating too much, quote, and then they'll say sort of, I have no willpower. And it's this black and white thinking that is quite it's natural for us, it's human nature to some extent, but I think people like to put things in buckets, so they categorize things to make sense of the world. And it's one thing to categorize, and it's another thing to then judge that decision. And we've talked about this. We sometimes put things in buckets. MYM. We've talked about things like the way we describe foods is, you probably heard me say, this is not really calorically dense, or this is a calorically dense type food. So if someone says, oh, a nut's good for me. Yes. Are they good for my weight loss? Yes, with a little asterisk, because it's a calorically dense food. It's full of fat. It's all good fat, but it's still, if you overeat on that, and they're quite easy to overeat on, it's a challenge. So when we categorize that as, calorically dense, it makes an approach to a balanced diet a bit easier to navigate, because you won't hear me say that, for example, non-calorically dense foods are good or calorically dense foods are bad. If you've got clear-cut health goals, let's say whether it's weight loss, whether it's running a 5K, whether it's just, getting up and down the stairs without being out of breath, you can work on getting healthy or get into a weight that feels good, but you don't need to do, in an order to achieve the things to put a value on foods. And it's a hard pattern to break with all the conditioning that
Mm.
you've all had over the years through health magazines and stuff like that. And it requires a reframing of thoughts. It requires of reframing of your feelings, of your attitudes concerning food in ways that, I think will support rather than thwart your goals, right? So what I want to introduce you to is something called metacognition. It's a little psychology trick, but basically it's a bit of a brain bender, right? In a sense, you are not your thoughts and you're not your feelings. You are the one who has thoughts and feelings. And metacognition is really just a fancy term for the awareness of the separation between you and your thoughts, right? And And that acknowledgement that you are the one observing your thoughts, right? So take a step back and pull out, and then you're observing sort of your thoughts. It's a process of planning, of monitoring, of assessing your understanding or sort of performance. It includes critical awareness of your own thinking and your learning, but also an awareness of yourself as a thinker and learner, right? We technically, metacognition is about, oh, how would I explain that? It's thinking about thinking, right? It sounds like a really cool concept, really sci-fi, but really it's just a tool that you can use to handle thoughts about specific foods, right? Because before you can have a good relationship with um with food, you might need to deal with some of the less helpful thoughts that around food that creep into your mind, and a way to do that is begin to notice these thoughts popping up in your head, and then
Mm.
start to reframe those thoughts as, you know, as things you are having. I'm just having a thought rather than I am this thought. Because also another thing, we've actually mentioned this in the low self-esteem series. We talked about, and if you don't know what that is, I can send it to you. It's not a problem. It's a series we did on low self-esteem, how to improve your self-confidence and stuff. But um, we talked about questioning, if those thoughts are true. For example, like if you've eaten, let's say you had loads of vegetables after a day of eating, like loads of fruits, you've been for a walk, you've been to the gym, whatever, you might have the thought that man, I was really good all day. And then dinner came and you're really hungry, you ate, let's say you ate your normal food, and then you had a big dessert, cake or whatever, a couple of bickies. You may have thought, oh, fucking hell, I've ruined everything now. I'm a failure. Or you were bad. But with this tool, you stop that and examine those thoughts apart from yourself. So, is it true that eating vegetables makes you good and eating dessert makes you bad? Of course, it's not the case. It's not even true. Even if you have that thought or that feeling, remember, you're having the thought that you were good or bad. It has nothing to do with your actual goodness or badness, right? So, if you apply this tool whenever you feel your thoughts going negative, you can stop that sort of spiral of despair that is so common when people are trying to eat healthier and think they've failed. So it helps you take a step back from those thoughts so you can firstly deconstruct them and discover, okay, is it true? Is there any sort of modicum of truth in this statement? You know, for example, like if I use Sharon as an example, we went to Starbucks the other day, but she probably thinks, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If I have maybe not a frappuccino or whatever, I can't remember what it is you have. If I have that, I've been I've been bad today. You know what I mean? We want to be able to deconstruct that. Okay, is it true that me having a frappuccino once, twice across the week has made me derail my progress? No. Right?
Yeah.
Second thing is you reframe it in a way that is more positive and in line with your goals. Well, that particular frappuccino or coffee date with my partner has made things, really enjoyed it, got to connect with
Mm.
them deeper. I was able to, it really having a little bit of what I like really makes me feel like I can, um, endure some of the more difficult days when they do arise. And, there's loads of little ways that you can sort of pluck some of those, I would say, thought distortions out of your mind and sort of reframe them. So one of them is like, let's say you say, I was good all day. What does, I mean, what does that mean? What does that mean for you two? If you say to yourself, I was good all day, what are the things that pop into your head?
Generally food.
Yeah.
Mm. Um, and whether you've exercised and got outside for a bit and things like that. But Yeah, it's not just that, is it? For you to be good, it's not just food and exercise, it's your whole life.
Hmm.
Mm.
So, so for me, right, let's try and examine that. What does that even mean? Good all day. Really, what this thing, firstly, see this thing as apart from you. You know, it's just floating out there. I was good all day. That's the phrase. Look at it for too long and it can start to feel sort of a bit absurd. I was good all day because you're starting to, if you reframe that thought into one that is sort of more useful for you, such as I stuck to my goals today. I'm so proud of how well I was able to do that. I really can practice healthy habits. The two are very
Mm.
distinctly different, aren't they? One is
Yeah.
like a reinforcement of the self, and it's just like I was really proud that I was able to um, stick with my healthy habits. And we have that sort of flip side. I was bad tonight. Do you do you really believe you were bad? If so, if that is the case, is that a rational thought that you've had a couple of biscuits after and you think you've blown the week?
Mm.
Would people you love, if you asked, your best friend, your partner, your, you know, whoever close to you, would people you love agree with you with that particular thing? For example, you had a
No.
couple of biscuits tonight after dinner, Carol. Um, would people, and I'm really bad tonight. I was very bad tonight. Oh, it wasn't the best. God, like, would people agree with you? Probably,
No, not at all.
probably
No,
not. Yeah. So
no.
you can sort of start to reframe those things by saying, I had a long day. By dinner, I had a bit of decision fatigue, willpower, felt like it, I used it all up. And by this evening, I sort of ate more than I'd planned to when I'd actually started the day. Right? That's that's it. There's no judgment there. It's not as if you're
Mm.
like, I've let myself down. You've tackled the what would you say? You've tackled the thought.
Mm.
Saying I was bad tonight isn't a rational thought, but saying the way that you able to reframe it, I had a long day, dinner time, I had decision fatigue, my willpower felt like I used it up. So that will give you some perspective on how you can tackle that should that issue arise, right? What can I do to reduce decision fatigue? Well, I can plan out the food for the week. I can make sure that it's already planned so that when I do come to prepare my dinner, that is all that I have. And I
Mm.
don't, because one of the worst things that I do is if I haven't got food prepared and I'm hungry, the chance of me eating nutritiously is lower than if I have it prepared, right? If it's prepared and I just can reheat it, easy peasy. But if it's not, it's harder. But I think the big thing is the no judgment part. It's just a fact. It's just a fact, right? I
Yeah.
ate more than I planned to when I started the day. No judgment. If you're going to add a helpful thought rather than discourage one, you could think that, well, hey, happens to everyone now and then. Doesn't mean it's going to happen to me all the time. Doesn't mean that I've failed. Now, I know that it's more difficult to act according to my long term goals when I'm tired. I know that as a fact. So what is my plan to help me the next time that this problem arises? That's a
Yeah.
helpful thought. It's not judgmental. So automatically you start to reframe all of these thoughts, right?
Mm.
What
Yeah.
about this has come up loads among the women we've spoken to. What about I blew it? I'm a failure. I've failed. And then normally what happens is, you know, let's say this happens on a Wednesday. They they bugger it up. They just throw it in the bucket bin and then they start again. So they blow it all, and then Sunday like I'm gonna do it. Right, I'm definitely doing it. Monday, I'm on it. I've
But
definitely done
then,
that. Definitely done that.
mm.
Sure you two have as well. People watching this on
I, well, it's whilst I've been doing this program, I haven't done that for a whole week. Like I said to you when I had my news, I emotional ate for about 2 days, but I pulled it back and I stayed at my same weight. So I didn't gain that week, which was a plus for me
Yeah.
because I felt I'd overeaten for those 2 days and it would have, had an effect. But I was pleased that it didn't increase my weight. So,
Yeah, I think it's positive. I said to you on that particular feedback, I said there's positives in that. There's
mm,
positives even if it wasn't stuck to particularly well, um, given the news. It's understandable. You know,
yeah,
whenever we have some challenging news, life is going to sometimes hit
throw a
us.
curveball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're not, I'm not expecting you to just be like, follow the
a
plan,
robot.
follow the plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
it's just not the case. It's just like, okay, cool. You're able to sort of bounce back after 2 days, which is fantastic.
mm,
Because this is a seed that you sow both positively and negatively. If you're saying I'm a failure, think about subconscious behaviors that are going to follow that.
mm,
And if you let that float around for a bit, I blew it, I'm a failure. You can see how untrue it is. Even just in your case, then, Carol, like you've got 2 days where you weren't the best, and actually across that week, and you had 2 days that you were quote off plan,
mm,
you maintained your weight. So yeah,
yeah,
you didn't blow it, you weren't a
no,
failure. You know,
no,
you needed something in the immediate term to help with any sort of news.
mm,
And sometimes I actually believe that that's a really, most of the time, actually, whenever we get some challenging news, I believe it's a really good emotional crux to do that. The problem lies for me is when people use it consistently. For example, someone's given me so much work to do at work, I just can't handle it. And then they go home, they have a glass of wine, and they'll have some chips or whatever. And it's and it becomes as soon as you feel a little bit of stress, I emotionally eat. That's not conducive to optimal health. But what you
mm,
went through, what you're going through, 100% a valid reason.
mm,
So
yeah,
so if we floating that around, right, that I blew it, I'm a failure sort of one. Um, if you unpack it, it's funny because so basically you're saying you're a failure because you ate more food than you planned to eat hours before the particular meal. Let's say you had an extra snack or whatever.
mm,
How does that make anybody a failure? Like you've got so many more chances to work on your
yeah,
goals. You know, the way that I personally would reframe that one is I'd say, look, I know there are reasons why I did what I did. Maybe I didn't eat enough earlier in the day. Maybe I skipped breakfast. I don't normally skip breakfast. Maybe I let myself get too hungry because of work or because I was poor planning or whatever. I didn't follow my plan tonight, and sometimes plans don't work out, right? It could
mm,
be simple as that. It could be like the bright side is I didn't, let's say you had ice cream and everything was fine. You had a bit more ice cream. You know, did you enjoy the
yeah,
ice cream? Fucking loved it.
mm,
But it's okay to enjoy an ice cream treat every now and then. If it's
yeah,
happening daily, there's a bigger issue. You know,
yeah,
there's so many things you can do with that sort of thought distortion. Right? Just step back, have a look, examine it for a moment, give yourself a. And this is why I like eating without distraction. I'm the biggest
mm,
hypocrite here for saying that because I love watching a good series and eating. I just love it. I grew up with it because my dad was always working and my mum would get so annoyed that she'd be like, "Oh, okay, fine, just go in front of the TV," because I was like, "Mum, can we watch?" Because Dad didn't make it home for dinner, and I was like, "Can we watch it in front of the TV?" So like that's comfortable for me. That is watching
mm,
stuff, and it's not ideal at all because I don't take stock of I'm just feeding myself, and I don't take stock of my hunger, and I just wolf it down.
mm,
But sometimes just give yourself a pause, take a step back, have a look. Right, your brain is very very wise. Sometimes it can produce thoughts that are just dramatic, pessimistic, frustrating.
mm,
Sometimes it can be, optimistic, a bit too much like me. Um, because I just sometimes I will I'm sometimes the opposite of clients in the way that if I eat something, I'm like, oh, it's fine. It'll be fine tomorrow. And sometimes that sort of complacency can creep in.
mm,
Do it too frequently because I'm so optimistic I'll be fine the day after. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
like that's a danger as well. Like me and Viola are polar opposites. Viola's very much like a lot of you ladies like will beat herself up. I won't beat myself up at all, and that is bad as well because I would just consistently keep eating. I'm like, it's fine. Tomorrow's going to be a new day. Tomorrow comes,
Yeah.
I'll eat again. And I'll be like, it's
Mm.
fine. Tomorrow's a new day. Like, and I won't feel bad about it. Like, it's really bad. So I need a coach to kick me in the bum sometimes. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I did want to talk about sort of types of eating because that sort of metacognition is really cool. Great tool to apply to eating in order to understand the many reasons of why and how we sort of do it. Um, because it helps you notice when you're eating because of hunger, when you're eating because of pleasure, when you're eating out of boredom, you're eating driven by your emotions. There's nothing wrong with eating for reasons other than hunger now and then. But if you begin to sort of fall, or actually feel like you're falling out of control with food, not eating in a way that supports the,
Mm.
the journey you're on, then that will help. That tool will help. And
Yeah.
to use that tool more effectively, I want us, there's sort of four types of eating that most of us sort of dip into and out of different times, different situations, different moods. And as I'm talking about these, see if you recognize doing them, right? Most of us have done them all. So that when you do start doing them next time, think about them, think about how and why you are eating. And the four types of um, eating are there's fuel eating, there's fun eating, fog eating, and storm eating. Now, as evocative as those particular names might be, they're not psychology terms. They're just named that way because it helps you remember them. And as I explain a bit more, you'll be, oh, that makes sense. Um, and hopefully it helps you recognize them in your day to day as you're going about your day. Right. So we have fuel eating. Now, fuel eating is for the purpose of fueling your body, right? Fuel eating means choosing foods that are nourishing to the body and that provide the right kind of fuel, good energy, health, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, lean protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Fuel eating is how we, want you to eat most of the time. Eating to live, it's as opposed to living to eat. It feels great because the foods are, that your body loves. It's when you make that conscious choice to have a big salad with loads of veggies instead of having a pizza, you know, you are fuel eating. Fuel eating helps your body work better for your mental health. Um, a lot of studies around that. But, you know, fuel eating is a bum. Oh, we lost someone.
No, there was a message came up. She's gone for a walk, so she's still listening. She's
Okay,
turned her
cool.
camera off.
All right, cool. Um, so yeah, I was talking about fuel eating. There's a cool paper. Basically, this study looked at how happy and satisfied people felt after eating, and it was like a little smartphone based assessment over the course of only 8 days. But they found that when you have more vegetables, it contributed to most eating happiness over the course of the 8 days, and people were generally happier after eating vegetables and fruits as they were after eating sweets. So that study found that people were just as happy after eating dinner as they were after snacking, which was surprising because who expected that snacking would make people happier? So this study really, it's no worries that fuel eating is it's great. It's healthy, but be aware that it's easy to label fuel eating as good as the most optimal way or virtuous. I am a fuel eater and therefore I am queen. No, it's good for you, but it's not the only food game in town. So like don't be going, I want to try and be a fuel eater. It's just a way of eating, right? Then there's fun eating, that's sort of what I would say is hedonic. It's eating for pleasure. So if fuel eating is eating to live, fun eating is living to eat. You can do both. That's the variety of life. That's what's beautiful about life. You can have a bit of pizza on a Saturday. You can have all the vegetables in the week. There's a bit of both. Fantastic, right? Fun foods are things like comfort foods, right? You know, I don't know, my mum's shepherd pie, or um, nonna's lasagna if you're Italian, or something like that. Indulging desserts or whatever, cake, you know, holiday, birthday, celebratory foods, things like that. Any food you eat, more for pleasure than nutrients, goes into this thinking. It doesn't mean that fun foods aren't nutritious. Again, another study in 2019 showed that the moderate consumption of these pleasurable foods is a healthy way to eat, right? As opposed to being in a food prison and constantly fretting over food, trying to be the perfect eater, thinking of pleasurable food in negative terms, right? Because that's not good. It's like, fucking hell, I have to always have this bloody vegetables. Yeah, that's not a nice way to think about food. So just as it is easy to think of fuel eating as good, it can be easy to think of fun eating as bad as well, right? And that's unnecessary stress. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a little bit of fun in life, right? Mindfully eating fun foods that are shared with family, birthdays, anniversaries, whether we enjoy cooking,
Mm.
appreciating just the food experience and prioritizing high quality food, of course, is is important, but we can still achieve moderation without constantly having to worry about self-control.
Mm.
And I love that theory of a bit of fun, a bit of fuel eating, because it tends to, yeah, fuel eating tends to be calorically dense. So I do want you to keep that in mind as you make deliberate decisions about portion sizes and specifically, let's say you're having some chocolate. Obviously, don't go bonkers and have the whole slab. Um, have enough to make you go, oh, that's delicious. And then just balance it with the fuel eating. And then we've got sort of like fog eating. Now, I would explain fog eating. What would you explain fog eating as, if I've just said fog eating to you? What comes up when you think of fog?
That you're not really thinking about what you're eating.
That's it. Perfect. It's just mindless eating. It's
Mm.
You're not paying attention to what you're doing. We've all been there, right? Like, and I'm pretty notorious with this. When I'm watching Netflix and I'm munching or I'm having dinner, um, you're totally into your show. Suddenly, the whole bowl of peanuts or popcorn or chocolate, whatever you got, is gone. You're like, did the dog eat these? You're like, where the hell? And you're like, that was all you. You nicked these when I weren't looking. Like, this can happen multiple times a day. So it's definitely something that if you got into the habit of, you'll probably stop noticing.
Mm.
First time you've ever ate like ice cream, you're probably bowled over by this fantastic deliciousness, the texture in your mouth. What the hell is this? But over time, you get used to it, right? It's hard to pay close attention to something that happens so frequently. So people tend to switch to sort of autopilot,
Mm.
right? And they eat while doing other things, checking messages on the phone, watching TV, even sometimes over dinner chat. You're so engrossed in a conversation, it's so interesting to you, you don't even realize you're wolfing things down. And I don't think you can completely avoid the fog eating, right?
No.
I ask you
Mm.
to pay attention to every single bite you eat. You're like, fucking hell, that's boring. I don't have to pay attention. I want to be a bit focused
Yeah.
on food, but I don't want to be obsessed.
Yeah.
So I suppose with that, paying attention when you eat might mean just make more considered choices. Notice when you fall, enjoy eating, enjoy eating more, of course, but tune into how much you're eating. Like, did you notice like, did you notice that you were going back for seconds? Were you portioning out what you're eating intentionally and going, all right, that's enough. I'm gonna have this plate. Like, let's say you're at the buffet. I'm gonna have this plate. That's me. I'm not gonna go up for seconds because I've had enough.
Mm.
I'm not gonna go up and have all the sweets because sometimes we seem to find an extra 50% a gap in our stomach when there's sweets about. After dinner, you're like, I'm so stuffed. And someone mentions cake, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for that cake. And like with
Mm.
there's a little secret stomach. Um, so I think, yeah, when I've had enough, I had enough. You just be mindful of that. When you've really had enough, to help you avoid that sort of overeating.
Yeah.
There's also a storm eating. Storm eating, I'd say, occurs around strong emotions. Backlash normally of overtly aggressive food restriction. You come home furious after a work situation, start tearing through the snack cabinet, pouring a glass of wine. You're somebody's left a box of donuts on the table, and you're like, oh, I've quit sugar anyway, so can't have those. And then for some reason the donuts are all gone. 5 minutes later, you've wolfed them down. There's no witnesses. Maybe you've undereaten all day and you just had a little bit of chicken and salad for lunch. You're just like, "Fuck, so hungry." So then, there's so many instances where you can see that happen.
Mm.
The thing is just with storm eating, it isn't actually hunger. It's more about, well, it depends on the situation. It could be rebelling about food restriction, or it could be self-medicating with food because you're stressed out. When this happens, I just when you feel about as it when whenever this happens, you feel about as in control of it as you would feel if you were sort of caught in a hurricane,
Mm.
right? Most people eh, have experienced some storm eating at some point. Some people do it frequently. It's normal for it to happen every now and then. But if it becomes habitual, like I said, if it becomes daily or, you know, every
Yeah.
other day, it can definitely work against reaching your health goals, right? And if you feel
Mm.
out of control with storm eating, we need to go through that food psychology series and, you know, get this kind of eating under control. Because with storm eating, if it feels problematic for you, think about whether you're eating enough. Think about whether you might be overly restrictive in your eating. For example, I'm eating too clean foods, or I'm not getting enough of the food that I do find delicious every now and then. I'm cutting out ice cream, and I love ice cream. Right? Why are you cutting
Mm.
it out then? You know, or ask yourself whether you're eating for emotional reasons and what might you do instead? Because in the
Mm.
long run, food isn't, unfortunately, able to solve our emotional issues.
No, no.
Yeah. Um, and then there's, of course, there's emotional eating. I think that, we brought it up. It's often associated with storm eating, and it can be associated with other types of eating. But with emotional eating, it's eating in response to strong feelings. And the reason people do it is that in the short term, it feels like it helps. Food can be comforting, it's interesting, it's pleasurable, it's distracting sometimes. And that might be just what you need.
Mm.
As it is, like in the most recent case, Carol, it is.
Yeah.
But
For me, it was I couldn't be bothered cooking because I felt too stressed to think about cooking
yeah,
something. So I just went and grabbed whatever there was there.
that's it.
So yeah.
And that, and that's absolutely fine. But if
Mm.
that was daily, we're never
Yeah.
going to get you to where you're getting to, right? Because
No.
emotional eating is happening. Let's say emotional eating is happening more than you want. Let's say it's happening daily. There's
Mm.
ways that we need to direct or redirect that emotional energy,
Mm.
right? I'm not just going to say take a bubble bath, call a friend. You've
Yeah.
you've probably heard that a million times. I'm not going to tell
Mm.
you I want you to feel your feelings, You
Yeah.
you're your own, you're entitled to those feelings. I'm not going to say that because I think the whole point of emotional eating is not having to feel those feelings, right?
Yeah.
You can always do that later. In that
Yeah.
moment, all you want is cake, right? Feeling
Well,
you.
cake's not for me.
All right,
I'm good on
chocolate.
that one.
What is it for
Yeah.
you?
It's savory crisps and
Okay,
things.
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, for me it's sweet. So like, yeah, whatever you go to, it's like that's all you want, and you're not, you don't want to feel your feelings. That's not going to cut it. What you need are coping strategies,
Mm.
and there's an acronym that we've used before called emote. Technically, emoting means feeling your feelings, but that's not what this is about, right? There's the emote stands for explore, meditate, observe, talk, text, and exercise. Emoting is basically more like a replacement for feeling your feelings. When that feels too difficult in the moment, do this. When you want to eat and you know it's coming from an emotional place, do these things, right? E The E stands for explore.
Mhm.
So exploring is fun. It's engaging. It's interesting. It can hit that dopamine button, and that is going to fill you with good vibes. It's going to, bump that stress response up, so you're not feeling so stressed. If you're feeling the urge to eat because of a strong emotion and not because of hunger, turn to something else you're interested in that makes you feel good. It
Mm.
could be reading a compelling article. It could be going down an internet rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. It could be watching something like Supernatural for on TV, which is something Sharon loves. Whatever it is, you could put in those earbuds. Check out
Mm.
that, your favorite band. It could be, a hobby that you have wanted to do that you haven't um, had time to do. Learn the guitar, whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is. Go on a hike, you know,
Mm.
find a new
Mm.
trail, start designing your dream vacation next year or something. Something new that's exciting that sparks your imagination and passion. Like let that exploration and newness take over your brain so there isn't room for wallowing, right?
Mm.
That's just one. Right. There's M is for meditate. I think that, give me um I think meditation isn't as hard as people say. I think, I use guided meditation. Feels really good. That helps me calm my anxious mind, helps me relieve stress, helps cheer me up, makes me feel a bit serene actually. I only do it 5 minutes a day, but I feel it's fantastic. For me, I sit and I notice my breathing, but more specifically, I use guided meditation. And the reason I do that is because there's it helps me focus on what the person's saying, right? If it's just music and I'm meditating to myself, I'm thinking about all the stressful things that I need to do,
Mhm.
all the stressful things. Whatever
Yeah.
strategy works for you, please, pick any you like. It could be, there's a few things like fallout breathing. So with fallout breathing, you inhale deeply through your nose, take in as much air as you can, let it fall out of your lungs through your mouth with a big sigh. Right? You can do that 5 times. Uh, do that until the stress response calms down. You could do box breathing. I've talked about that before. You inhale for a count of four, you hold your breath for a count of four, you exhale for a count of four, and you hold your breath after the exhale for a count of four. So you repeat that as many times as you need. Right? I guarantee if you're stressed and you do that, I promise you you'll feel at least 50% better. And then if you do a couple more times, you won't be perfect, but you'll be heaps better. You'll be in a better emotional state.
Mm.
It could be so many other things. It could be visualizing, whatever it is that you want to do. Find something that works for you and have that be one of your go-to tools. So we've done emote. So there's O. O is for observe, right? Sit still for a few minutes, observe everything around you, running through your four senses, right? You can skip the taste one because we're trying to get away from that one. Um, so yeah, mentally notice everything that you see. Get detail. What smells are around? Aromas can be subtle. Try and detect some around you, right? Here, what do you hear outside? Do you hear birds? Do you hear traffic noise? Do you hear the hum of the dishwasher? Like, what are you hearing? Feel, it could be the type of clothes you're wearing, a bit woolly. Could be the air on your skin from the draft through the window. It can be um, from the aircon. I don't know. Some of you in Australia are probably using the aircon now. This can this is distracting in an interesting way, and it really helps to sort of ground you. I don't know if you've heard of grounding before. Um, Grounding is generally the sense of getting your bare feet on the earth. But this is another way that you can sort of ground yourself and sort of center yourself, I would say.
Mhm.
So we have EMOT. T is for talk. Text you don't have to reveal, your most vulnerable, complicated feelings to sort of reap the benefits of this one. Just commenting, even in the group chat, commenting to, texting a friend, asking about, well, what's going on with you guys. There's nothing like listening to someone else just to get you out of their own head, right? If you end up talking about your own stuff, you might be talking through your feelings. So then it's cool. But if not, it's not required at all. It's sometimes that. interrupting the intensity of the upsetting feeling is as simple as a text out to a friend because other people are out there going through stuff too.
Mm.
Right? You're not alone in any sort of pain you're going through. People are going through. That's why it annoys me about, the social media stuff. You see the highlights. People's lives are so fucking fantastic. People don't normally portray the bad bits. You see the highlights of them. Oh, I've just bought my new car, new house. Oh my God, life's great. My daughter got married. Um, People are going through stuff. We don't
Mm.
think they are because they don't post it as much as the positive stuff, but they are. So just talk or text. And then there's E. E is for exercise, right? I don't mean go to the gym. I don't mean do 30 push-ups right now or do, half an hour of cardio, whatever, because I guarantee you feel like 0.0001% chance of doing that.
Mhm.
But what could you physically do for, let's say, 1 minute, up to 5 minutes? Right? Is it bodyweight squats? Set a timer. Challenge yourself next time.
Mm.
1 minute is enough to shift your mind to something else and get the blood flowing, right? How many squats, lunges? It could just be jumping jacks. It could be just going up the flight of stairs.
Mm.
How many can you do in 1 minute? Right? It could be a quick walk outside. If you make it to the end of the driveway, you've done something physical. What if after trying one or more than one or whatever of these sort of coping mechanisms, you realize you're actually hungry? Then bloody eat. Eat something.
Yeah.
Always an option. It's always an option. And I
Mm.
think that this emote is only for those times when you, nobody else, have decided that eating isn't your best or healthiest option right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as you sort of continue to examine, you gotta treat this as a learning. You're consistently learning about yourself every day. As you continue to examine and play with your relationship with food, you're gonna find that you are contending with pesky food phenomenon, cravings. Everyone gets them. But if you feel that they're
Yeah.
controlling your eating behavior in ways you don't like, then you may want to get to know them a little better because you know what they say, like keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Although you'll see cravings are not necessarily your enemy. I know that we think that. I think cravings help you with body awareness
Yeah.
when looked at differently. And I want to discuss that next week because um, cravings are probably the thing that derailed a lot of people with their attempts at eating healthier and their weight loss. You know,
Mm.
one of the most common answers is probably food cravings. Just can't control around food. And I want to tell you, sorry, I want to teach you what cravings are,
Mhm.
psychological trigger behind them, what causes them, why we're giving in and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about just in essence, metacognition, a bit of the psychology of eating.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's really useful. It's quite informative as to how I've been feeling over the last couple of weeks while I've been going through this stuff. Um, and it helps. But like I say, I gave myself a bit of a talking to pull myself together and, get back on track. But I have a poem that my granddad wrote for his eldest son when he was leaving home. That basically it's a 3 verse poem. And the first verse is, forget about yesterday. There's nothing you can do about that. It's gone. The second verse is that you can't affect tomorrow because it isn't here yet. And the third verse is focus on today because that's the only day you can impact. So that was like the talk I gave to myself,
yeah,
you know, listen to granddad,
yeah, I
we
love
had
it.
it right. So yeah. And it's
Wow.
yeah, absolutely spot on. Yeah.
That's a nice one. I like those. I like those
Yeah.
that it's also sentimental to you as well. It's not just some random quote that we've pulled. I mean, they're helpful, the random quotes,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they help shift
Yeah.
the perspective, but That's a nice one, that is.
It is. I'll drop it on the page, on the
Yeah,
Academy page.
that'd be nice,
I'll have to
thanks.
dig it. I think it's in the loft at the moment because I got a printed copy of it in his script handwriting,
Oh,
and I'll
wow.
find it at the bottom. So yeah,
That's
so
so
that's the plan.
good.
Yeah. So yeah,
I
it's
love
something
that.
I think about that a lot when I'm going through tough times.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
nice that it's got a script one. I think I had I got a my birthday yesterday and I got a um we got back from the honeymoon and my mum had given us a parcel for the sort of the wedding, and in there it had like a congratulations, but written by my dad's handwriting. It must be from an old car. And I was like, oh, so
Yeah.
nice. So like that
Yeah.
stuff is, yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah. It's stuff to keep, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the sentimental value more than anything else.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's stuff that you can, you've pulled some strength from that.
Yes.
Just going back over that and going, wow, okay, cool. Thanks,
Yeah.
Grandad.
Yeah.
It's good. But
Yeah.
yeah, we've got a little chat on Saturday morning, just a little I mean, you don't have to turn up, but it's just
Well,
a
I've registered, so
okay. No,
hopefully oh, that's for
that's for
the
next
third.
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Saturday one
Yeah.
is just for you ladies in the academy, just to sort of ask any questions. The accountability chat won't be an hour, but 20 minutes, half an hour if you've got any
Yeah.
questions. If not, then no worries.
Mhm.
That'll be directly in the group, okay?
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
All right,
No, that's
cool.
brilliant. I've enjoyed the evening.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending it
Um,
with us.
and welcome back.
Thanks. It's really good to be back. We're
Yeah.
back. Just nice routine, having routine again because we're, all over the place when you're going from no reception to, there's pockets where there's just a couple of days of no reception. It's just
Yeah.
terrible. It's difficult.
Yeah.
But
But you've had a great time, so
yeah,
you don't
memorable.
regret it. Don't ever
That's
regret
it.
it. Yeah.
No, I don't.
No.
All
No.
right, cool. I'll chat to you Saturday then.
Yeah. That's
All right.
brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Dean.
No worries, Carol. I'll speak to you
Cheers
soon.
then. Yeah, you too. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.